So I've gone a little speaker crazy lately. Those of you with Sonos understand, I got the itch. Y'all got any more of them speakers, man? Once you get one, you need more, and they ain't cheap. Not only does the Sonos look way cleaner than my previous wired setup, it sounds tastier and juicier too. I probably should have had a snack before making this video. That's better. My first Sonos speaker was the Move to replace my Google Home, and it's fantastic. I love it. Then I picked up the Sonos Beam to replace my messy wired setup, and to my surprise, on its own it sounded pretty dang good. But look, I'm at a stage of life where I don't want pretty good, I want awesome. So I bought some used Sonos Play 3s as surrounds since I thought that might satisfy my bass needs for a lower cost than having to buy the sub. But it didn't. I knew what needed to be done, I just didn't want to cough up the dough. I sold my old video games, I sold old toys and tech that weren't getting used anymore. Finally, it was within my reach, so I went for it. And this is the Sonos Gen 3 sub, and it costs a measly $999 plus tax. It was the speaker I wanted most, but the last one I actually purchased because, well, it's so damn expensive. To be fair, I bought this one used for 700 Canadian dollars, and look, I know even that is a ridiculous amount of money, but it sparks joy, all right? I don't have a lot of hobbies in my life, and this enables me to enjoy music, movies, and gaming in a way I've only dreamed of. Okay, wife? So get off my back about it already. Sorry, I forgot who I was talking to there. Yes, the price of this speaker will put your relationship to the test, but luckily in my case, I eventually won her over with my convincing argument. And now that we've enjoyed it for a while, well, it'd be hard to ever go back. Now before I continue, I will say there is a Sub Mini which is half the price, and I seriously considered that, but they are hard to find used, and ultimately I wanted the full Sonos experience, so went for the big one. And lucky for me, I've been weight training recently, so I was able to carry this thing in the door. Don't be deceived by its shiny, sleek looks. This thing is a chonker. It weighs over 36 pounds. This thing looks like a black hole and feels like one too. All right, let's talk about how it sounds. In case you can't tell through your speakers, this thing is awesome. Pairing the sub with the other Sonos speakers is like putting sauce on a burger. It's like dipping sushi in soy sauce. Sure, those foods taste fine on their own, but the sauce is where it really comes alive. You can't go back to a dry burger or dry sushi. Once you start experiencing the fullness the Sonos Gen 3 sub offers with your content, when you disable it, it just feels like something is missing. See, when you've never used it, you don't realize anything is missing. You can't, because you didn't even know it was there in the first place. But once you add the sub to the mix, it adds a whole level of frequencies you haven't been listening to. It's like adding another color to the rainbow. You're just like, oh yeah. When you have just the soundbar, for example, like I had, the little speakers in it do their best to cover all the frequencies of music of whatever you are listening to, right? The highs and the lows. But those speakers are not meant to hit low frequencies, but they try. And like I said earlier, the Beam sounded pretty dang good on its own, and the review is coming for that shortly, but without the sub, it's working hard doing something it's not really supposed to be doing, giving you bass. Because once you pair a sub with it, the Sonos app automatically adjusts the levels on the soundbar and other speakers to take the pressure off of those low frequencies so those speakers can focus on what they are good at, the mid and the high end sounds. When you don't have a sub paired, all the Sonos speakers sound worse because they're trying to play all of the frequencies. But once you add the sub, it literally makes all the other Sonos speakers sound better because it releases the chains of those smaller speakers trying to hit the low frequencies and allows them to soar, focusing on what they are truly good at. Right now, I have this speaker in a very large room and it fills the space well. It thumps. You can feel it. I could imagine the intensity this thing would deliver in a smaller space. It'd be nuts. It's funny, what really sold me on the speaker was when I tested it out at the person's house before I bought it, I wanted them to play a certain song. Back in those teenage days of mine where I prioritized bass-heavy songs over everything, Dog's Gonna Get Ya by Snoop always made my 15-inch subwoofer hit low notes my friends couldn't hit on their 12-inch subs. Now the two 6-inch oval speakers on the Sonos sub aren't teensy compared to what I knew from the past, so I was incredibly skeptical they could come close to hitting that note in this song. So, did they hit the super deep bass of that song? They hit it like a frickin' champ. Once I heard it hit that note, I was convinced. This thing is a bad. Also, the way they designed it, it doesn't shake. You hear people talking about how clean the sound is, and it's true. I can feel the bass here, but it's not rattling the whole house. Let's talk movies, because come on, with this, sounds like you're in the frickin' theater. It's wild, it rumbles. The booming, it adds a level of immersion you aren't used to in your regular life. The other night we put on Spider-Man Far From Home, and my kids and us were just mesmerized, not just because it's a good movie, but because you can feel the rumble from the action scenes, and it steals your attention like a slap on the face. It pulls you in. It's a sensory overload that is so satisfying because it makes you forget what you were even thinking about. It leaves you no time to think because your senses have taken over your body. With music too, there's a palpable feeling in the air from the low frequency that just sounds and feels so good. Notes you don't usually hear if you were to listen to that same music on normal speakers. Feeling the kick of that bass drum or letting the rhythm of the funky bass line take you over, I just love it. I've only been playing Nintendo games with this so far since we are moving, and I don't want to set up my main rig here, but I can imagine how insane this would be playing Forza, Call of Duty, or something like Red Dead Redemption. I can't wait. It's wireless, you can put it wherever you want, you don't need a complicated wired setup with a receiver, the app does all the work. You plug it in where you want, pair it with either your soundbar or stereo speakers, and you just adjust the level to whatever you want. So, should you buy the Sonos Sub Gen 3? Everyone should have one of these. They're awesome. But let's face it, not everyone can afford it. And not even that, a lot of people don't prioritize experiences like this in their lives. My best bud, for example, even though he could afford it, he's literally happy enough with his TV speakers and wouldn't spend 1 cent on Sonos speakers despite me gushing about them. The frustrating thing is, he watches the content I suggest and enjoys it, but in my mind I'm thinking, you can't possibly enjoy that because your audiovisual experience is so basic. But he does. I guess it's like if you're happy drinking cheap wine, then that's great because you don't know any better. But once you drink the expensive wine that is Sonos, you won't be able to look at that cheap wine again. So to answer the question of should you buy this speaker, well, that depends on you. Are you the kind of person who enjoys hearing all of the different instruments in a song, whether it's the clear vocals, punchy bass, or the warm guitar? Are you the kind of person who takes joy experiencing a movie and noticing all the thoughtful placements of sound effects and rumbles to truly make you feel like you're in the movie? If you're like me and want to smile every time you turn up your favorite song or your favorite scene because it looks and feels so good, and if you enjoy watching people's faces light up as they hear your setup and realize what it can actually sound like, then yes, you should absolutely buy the Sonos Sub Gen 3. Look, I didn't want to get too technical about this speaker because there's other videos for that. What I wanted to talk about was value. And while it's a hard thing to put value on, this thing lived up to the hype. For a good-looking, clean, wireless setup that's extremely simple to use and makes everything you listen to just sound incredible, the Sub Gen 3 is a must-have. If you love having products that make life a lot more exciting, this is certainly one of them. And that's the kind of life I like to live. If you can afford it and you don't have to worry about your neighbors, you will not regret buying the Sonos Sub. So if you're on the fence about whether you should buy it to add it to your existing Sonos lineup, well, if you have a Sonos lineup without it, I think you now know the answer. Do it. You won't regret it. Thank me later. In my last video, I talked about the Sonos Move, which might be my favorite speaker besides the Sub. Being able to listen to movies and shows while I'm in the kitchen cleaning or wherever I am in the house, it's just so cool. I use it all the time, more than I thought I would. Check out that video here. In my next video, I'm going to talk about the Sonos Beam. I'll put that video here when it's ready. Have you joined Team Sonos? If so, how many speakers do you have? If not, is it something you are going to consider? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time on The Sad Life.